Thank you, Fritz. It's a great honor to be here. First of all, I'm a student of many of professors here, mentors. And in addition to that, I'm a farmer, or literally I'm a peasant. So that's why I call it creating the deep forms in urban nature as a peasant's approach. And we're talking about aesthetics and ecologies. So where these two actually can merge, can come together. So I want, then can peasant have a theory, or can peasant have a model? So I try to find to dig out in the theory what can we describe as this peasant's approach. I find John Lyell's description about what is beautiful stages between ecology and humanities. I find this term deep form, deep form. So deep form is the unite between human and nature after long alienation of this industrial period of time. So that's basically his term. What means long alienated? Which means we'll go back to some time. And this time we found it's a peasant time. It's a farming period of time, agricultural time. Because no period of time has such a deep bond between nature and culture. So that's why I try to find the peasant's approach to create deep forms. And how can this second nature be helpful to design our modern urban nature? So that's what I'm going to say. So the deep form is, you can see, is shaped by at different levels. It literally means united between man and nature. So underneath human activities is the deep ecological process. So this is what Einstein described as new aesthetics a long time ago. So you can hear, so that's deep form. That's shallow form. This deep form has really underneath this ecological, adapt to the ecological process. And the shallow form, you can see here, the no ecological underneath. And today you see so many shallow form and fake forms, particularly in China, anywhere in China, and maybe in other parts of the world, of course. And we spend so much energy and so much labor, so much money to create such fake and shallow forms. Here you can see. And I find I would say, in my understanding, there are two levels of deep forms. One is configurative. The other is informative. As you know, configurative is about a relationship. They're not overlap, it's a relationship. For a long time, the people already find this kind of relationship, try to find this deep form between the relationship between man and nature. For example, this Asian China, about 2,000 years ago, have developed this skill called the feng shui skill to identify the goodest location for villages, for cities, for even any kind of human activities with nature. And it's amazing that you can see we identify so many thousands of kind of configurative relationship, configurative form. These are the forms of water, the relationship of people with water. These forms, graveyard, to say where is the best graveyard in relation to water, to nature. And this is exactly built. You see, this graveyard, these temples, you can see here. So these are kind of configurative relationship. And for over 2,000 years, the Chinese invented this technology, really technology. You can see, this is called the compass. The compass was invented about 2,000 years ago, not for navigation, but for landscaping, to find the best location for people to settle, to act in relation to the natural forces. And we find these kind of configurative forms, you can see. Literally, this is conceptual. You know, and these animals just show different orientation, different directions. Blue dragons, tiger white, red bird, and the black turtles, these different orientations in relation to the landscape. So this is configurative. And the whole cities are built based on this deep form, the relationship with nature. The cities built in relation to the water. And here is exactly the cities built following this kind of configurative deep form. And villages, of course. And now today we have this modern ecology. Today we talk a lot about from Patrick Gaddis to in McHarg, the layer cake model, the vertical layer cake model to identify the configurative relationship between suitable and unsuitable. And Patrick Gaddis identifies this pattern between this is the nature from fisherman all the way to the wood, logman, and farmers. So these are all configurative relationship. And the Richard Foreman, the landscape ecology format, landscape ecology model is analyze a horizontal relationship. Well, in McHarg, based on these vertical analyze layers, but Foreman analyzes the horizontal, talking about process, the movement, and the relationship build this kind of pattern. But all these patterns are basically about this spatial configurative relationship. Basically, the methodology defines the line between man and nature. And we're talking about the resilience. Here, actually, you can find the resilience levels. This is my dissertation at the GSD. I really analyze where's the security levels when the system crash. But they are not just one line, they're multiple lines, different levels of security. So these I would like to use the word how standards contribute to this understanding. He called landscape plan is defensive, not a determinative, it's a defensive. So it's a board game basically about the relationship, spatial relationship, man, the white, nature, the black. So it's a defensive board game, spatial relationship. So this is actually planning, landscape planning. Where do what? And we, in the past 15 years, we have been able to use this configurative, try to develop these configurative deep forms from the national scale, that's the national planning, and regional scale, and all the way to urban city community scale, to develop this relationship between man and nature. And regional scale, how can we use this natural, this configurative deep form to deal with water, to deal with biodiversity, to deal with cultural heritage, and to deal with people's movement. Our plan for Beijing, this ecological infrastructure, which would define the form of urban development. Instead of exploring based on great infrastructure, we say that landscape as infrastructure define the urban form. So that's again, but that is still a configurative relationship or configurative deep form. But another level of the deep form is transformative. I want to use GI's word. It's dripping. It's dripping over. It's overlap. It's not adjacency. It's about overlapping. So how can we transform the landscape to create deep form? Now that's become more difficult. We have all these science researchers to develop the ecological plannings, its configurative patterns from Patrick Gaddis all the way to Richard Foreman. But we still have the problem to define the transformative deep form. That's why we have to learn from farmers, from peasants. Yeah, these are transformative. You can see any scale. See the floating garden in Mexico, the terraces in China, they're transformative. There's no separate, it's man and nature is inseparable. You cannot separate from man, nature from the culture. Yeah. That's transformative. And the opposite, just is progress transformative. We can see another way of transformative. Decay is another way of transformative. I want to quote this, The World Without Us. This is the bestseller American book. To see how New York will decay in the future if without human care. Nature, cultural landscape will become transformative, become transformed into nature is decaying. So the science of ecology has been regularly assimilated in the planning to develop this configurative form, whereas the transformative deep form needs to be created through creative design, which has been a more difficult task because ecology usually means messy. That's ecology usually not so good. So that's difficult. So searching for such deep form as a technique, as a strategy, as a technique, it's become a fundamental for this profession. How can we transform the nature, the landscape, the ecology into culture, which functional as an ecology system, but as a culture, beautiful landscape. So deep form, learn from peasants, a peasant approach. The reason, because as I mentioned, deep form represents a deep bond between man and nature. And no bond between humanity and nature is as strong as that between peasant and their land. It is therefore will be important and fundamentally important to study how peasants, with their traditional farming practices, transforming their natural landscape for living, and thereby evolve a variety of inspiring deep forms. Now these are buried or lasting wisdoms in Ansel just mentioned this morning. Now this kind of wisdom we can still, I find really inspiring and I contribute to my practice. This is a return of landscape to its basics, provides the solidity of coherent process under the surface of designed nature that yields the deep form and the meeting of appearance and the reality, mind and nature, art and science. And this kind of deep form, the farmers or a peasant's approach, they're important because when you look at that, these are essential characteristics of farmers living. The dependence on the limited resources, the dedication of the minimum effort, and the commitment to sustainability, and the retention of human scale and collaboration, celebration. Now, all these are basic characteristics which we are looking for, which human nature, which I mean the urban nature should have these basic characteristics. So that's the return of landscape as a peasant. It means we want to get this kind of basic human needs. Collaboration is important because in order to follow the natural pace, we have to collaborate to catch it. Planting, we need to spend only 1 day for planting, otherwise we lose the seasons. Harvesting, we maybe just have to finish in 1 day or 1 week, otherwise we will lose the season. So that's all this process involving all these characteristics which we value so much for our urban nature. And the process of farming created both configurative and transformative deforms, of course. But I will focus only on these transformative forms. 4 transformative actions by peasants in their farming are practically essential to the creating of deep forms. I make 4 categories. One is cut and fill. Second is frame and access. The third is irrigate and fertilize. And the fourth is grow and harvest. I will just briefly describe it. Cut and fill. We should understand it as a one word, cut and fill. Not grading for form, for ornamental form, but cut and fill to create habitat for crops that produce food. So that's cut and fill, create habitat. So that's one word. It's purposeful, and it should be considered as one action, not 2, and happens at human scale. Peasant is not a mechanical farmer. It's literally peasant. So I find it's really interesting. You can see cut and fill happen at the same time at human scale and purposeful. And this act being applied in almost all parts of the world. On the world, you can see to transform unproductive and transform otherwise unsuitable land into productive land. Now that's the magic of this skill. In Tibet, in Bali Island, Indonesia, here you can see also in Philippines, anywhere, use the same skill. The whole globe almost can be transformed by such a simple technology, simple tactics. And in China, you can see that vast landscape being transformed by individual peasants for hundreds and thousands of years. The 2 most productive areas in China is the Pearl Delta area, Pearl River Delta area, and the Yangtze River Delta area. And these 2 areas were considered to be the most beautiful area in China, being described even by Westerners as a paradise of the world, paradise. And this is very simple. You can see that in Pearl River Delta area, by individual farmers or peasants, literally create such a beautiful, productive, and resilient landscape that's sustainable. It's been here for 2,000 years. You can imagine what kind of techniques can make such a sustainable landscape. The second is frame and access. Both frame and access for farming create visible deep forms, which provide the intimacy of human scale and activity while reflecting a balance between humanity and nature. Now, metaphorically, as well as physically, NASA use this term frame as a cultural language to transform messy ecosystems into neatly ordered landscape that become attractive to people. Now, the frame, I literally use as physical term, frame, not metaphorically. Physically, from very thin, very little frame, to frame a vine to make it productive. And to any kind of frame, here you can see it's a larger scale frame to build this green belt. That's all the frames. The frames can be as modest as simple wood structures to support crops from falling down and growing messy. A border at the edge of field is typically cut to define the crop from invasive forces, either human or nature. Access. Human accessibility is necessary for the farming routine. The narrow paths that divide the field patches, the ditches and ridges lines of the farming field, the spaces in between orchard trees are all measured with access for farming operation and human scale, that's different from the mechanical farming. Human scale, accessibility, you can see. That's peasants. That's important. Irrigation and fertilize. Now, irrigation and fertilize here is totally different from what we understand here in modern time for our landscape architecture students. Irrigation, we always understand is a spray, pipes, pumps. The farmer's irrigation system is totally different, which really creates a deep form. Irrigating following nature's forces and fertilizing using the natural flux and the cycling of materials create deep forms. Peasant's approach to irrigation is deeply rooted in natural process and patterns. For thousands of years, irrigation is one of the most wisely developed knowledge in the agricultural society. Here you can see the division of water, the 2 holes here, the 8 holes here. It all depends on how much field are you going to irrigate. So that's Indonesia in Bali Island. They developed this Sobaka system, dividing water to irrigate the field. Now that transforms the whole landscape. The whole landscape in China is as in Sichuan Basin. The whole basin is transformed by this simple irrigation technique. A fish mouth divides the whole landscape, the whole basin, into such kind of landscape. That's the irrigation system based on the natural process. You can imagine what kind of fake form can be produced today if we use pumps and pipes and machines. Today's irrigation system, which didn't create deep forms. And in the urban landscape, urban nature, again, the fixed form based on this modern irrigation system, not peasants' irrigation system. So the peasants' approach to fertilizer is also need something for us to learn, of course. Fertilizer, anything vegetation, anything human waste, become fertilizer. You can see it's a cycle, of course. You all know that. The problem today is that we've broken this cycle. We've broken this nutrient cycle. And here that's a picture you can see in Yunnan. This is a big lake. So heavily polluted, severely polluted, basically by nutrients, nitrogen rich. And this nitrogen will be so treasured by farmers, otherwise by peasants, to fertilize their field. But now we use chemical fertilizer to fertilize this landscape. And underneath here is a lake, which being heavily polluted. So if we can fix this flux, we can virtually create deep form. The 4th category is grow and harvest. Now this again, grow and harvest is one word. I would say one action. Grow for harvest. The growing for harvesting creates deep forms. Like cutting and filling, growing and harvesting should be understood as a single integrated action. Unlike planting and pruning for present ornamental form in gardening, the peasant's approach to planting is focused on productivity. Otherwise, he will just let nature grow. But that's no bother to invest any energy to grow or to create any form. Planting begins with sowing of seeds, and this management process follows nature's rhythm as a strategy of adaptation to the surrounding climate and conditions. Sowing is the most economic way to grow and to grow. And that's about growth. The deep form are therefore created as a compromise between human desires and natural forces, and they reflect a unification of natural rhythm and cultural activities. So you can see the diversity at this village, near the village, is actually humans' compromise between nature's and humans' desire for natural societies. And certainly productive doesn't mean just grains or medicines. It can be even be other means like cleaning of water. For this case, the village pond from this village actually function as a purification pond, not merely for production. So these essential features of peasant farming tactics illuminate the underlying basis for deep forms as expressions of compromise between natural and the human desires, balancing natural process and cultural intervention, and help us to claim and discover deep forms in urban nature. The third part I'm talking is what's that mean to our urban design, to design. So that applying the peasant's approach to create deep form in urban nature. I want just to illustrate 7 cases to show actually what we do with this peasant's approach to create urban nature. The first case is an architectural school campus in Shenyang in North China. It's literally used farmers' approach. Literally, you can see. I think that's the existing situation. So the solution is cut and fill, but very shallow, narrow, very simple cut and fill, because this land is flat. So cut and fill just created enough space for water to irrigate. So irrigation again here plays a key role here. Collect stormwater to irrigate the field and create this tree line as a frame and put the study room right in the middle of the field. Create a frame again and so that's literally use peasant's approach to create the landscape right in the middle of the city, and it's certainly very productive. You can see, but beautiful. Human scale, you can see, and fish in the rice paddy, sheep on the campus also with people, and harvesting. So growing for harvesting. All this process and also framed in the field. The second case, again, if we can fix the flux, we can weave or decouple the flux of nutrient and productivity, we will likely to create deep forms. This is the case in Shanghai Expo. 75% of surface water in China is polluted. So how can we find a solution? Such a vast scale of pollution, can we solve it? Now these farmers can solve it, I would say. Peasants can solve this problem. Then we learn from farmers, use terraces, cut and fill, create terraces, and irrigation system, learn from farmers to irrigate the field, and the plant, grow for harvest. That's irrigation system, of course, integrated with that's cascade wall to create oxygen in the water. Terraces, irrigating use graft, and run through this process. You can see when you irrigate the field, the nutrient become productive again. And so turn nutrient become productive. So that's fixing the broken flux. Cornfield, you can see here, people living. And when the water run out, after 1 mile, crystal clean water come out. Every day, only 3 hectares of wetland, we produce 2,400 cubic meter of water. Now it's measurable, it's testable, you can measure it. We have students measure it every year. So we literally produce clean water, producing food, producing biodiversity, and also pressure for people to use. Now this case also uses peasant approach. It's in Tianjin, in the middle of the city, and a very polluted land in the middle of the city is a shooting range. Polluted, you can see. So the idea is very simple again. farmer tell us how to do it. Cut and fill, right on site, no movement of dirt, create our diversity of habitat, different depths of the cavities, ponds, collect different amount of water, and change the pH value of the soil. The stormwater be collected. Because of the difference of pH value, you will have different habitat to grow. And certainly create a frame people can use it. Access frame. That's a peasant's approach. Again, the fourth case is create green sponge for a water resilient city. We are talking a lot about water resilient. Here's a case, of course. In China, all the cities are under the flood during the rainy season. There's big park, big green space right in the middle of the city. Now we want to design as a sponge, green sponge. The technique is very simple. Cut and fill, create a sponge surrounding the big piece of land. Let the middle part along. That natural process go through. And this piece, the surrounding will be as a filtrator for stormwater, and put the people above it, access above it, a frame also surrounding this messy landscape. Now this is very simple cut and fill. No transportation of dirt, again, on site. One machine, one dark machine, create this fill, different color cut, and different depths. So create this system. The water will run through it, the stormwater runs through it. And this is tested. After 2 years, you see how the water from the quality of water can be changed. That dirty water and is periphery, inside is clean water, blue. That's existing topography. That's the water flow. So that's basically that's rendering. You can see and built in 1 year, and very inexpensive. Only 1/4 of the normal park expenses. So that function as a filtration system, and it's generated urban development. You can see just in 1 year, urban development just happened surrounding this park. That's cut and fill system, accessibility, frame it, and leave alone in the middle part. The nature take place, and this recharges the aquifer. So clean water run into the middle, recharge the aquifer, and you can see how much development happening surrounding this part. So it's also generating economic value surrounding this wetland. In the middle can be also accessible, frame, access, messy, leave nature alone, bird watching bird, yeah. And above it, accessible, frames in nature, leave alone the nature piece. Yeah. So this case to show how can we cope, reweaves the natural flux, use the peasant's approach, very economical, inexpensive approach. Now this case, Anne just mentioned this morning, very simple, minimum approach. It's just one strategy, frame it. That nature is messy, that's a floodable water, so simple. Usually people do it like that, but complicated engineer do it, landscape architect do that, maybe experimental. But in this case, we just use one simple frame, one line, red line, and this red line will transform the landscape. The messy landscape is transformed just by this line. Minimum touch, the maximum return. That's a farmer's principle. That's peasant's principle. You see how peasants like it actually. Farmers like it. Messy nature, no irrigation system. Just no pipes, no lines. just the nature grow. But framing, that's excessive, make it accessible. It's not. And finally, I want to use this case to show how these two levels of deep form can be integrated. Now, this is a case in southwest China. Again, every channel like that, all the water floated, channelized, wetland disappear, stormwater, big problem, pollution. So how can we solve it? Planning first, creates this configurative deep form, creates the ecological infrastructure to deal with the stormwater, to catch all this stormwater runoff and to clean it. This system. So there's a configuration between nature and the city. And then we build it. You can see this is the first phase. About 100 hectares. And that's before and after. That transform, I just show you transformative. Before, after. Now, this planning strategy uses layer cake model. Again, this is a special analyze. Ecologists to tell us how to develop this system. We have enough ecology tools and information system, GIS system, to develop this configurative system. But we also need these transformative skills, which is peasant skills. Because we are, of course, terraces. When it is too steep, this is terraces. And it's very simple to cut and fill to create this landscape, to transform this formal landscape into the peasant's landscape. Slow down the process of runoff, peasant's approach, cut and fill, bioswale, a series of bioswales to slow down the process of water and the productive. You can see cleansing of water. Also framing, accessible. When the slope is steep enough, we create a narrower, smaller bioswale. When it's too steep, we use terraces to catch the stormwater. And it's, of course, very welcome. And framing. This method nature needs a frame again. It's a bridge that acts as an access and also as a frame. That's a piece. It transforms the landscape into cultural landscape, into the people view it. So, peasant's approach, what can transform? Transform the building. You recognize this one. The most famous building in the world, almost. How can we transform it? It's transformed into a pig farm, you see. Peasant's approach. That's just kidding. But then that's a transformative. The bird nest. Unsustainable, totally unsustainable. Transform it. Peasant's approach. But again, the farmers, national farmers market. That's it. But I want to show the real one. How can we transform the unsustainable buildings? Use farmers' approach or peasants' approach. Now, this is my own my own apartment in a very dense community. Collect stormwater again, irrigate the platform, and grow and harvest. As a harvest, all the vegetation, and that's the stormwater collected, and it's as vegetables, all vegetables. And this certainly is stormwater. These are gardenias. These are my own bedroom on the 5th floor. That's on the 5th floor. Harvesting stormwater, but here is the magic. It's a living wall. Now, many people are talking about living wall. Now, this living wall is different because it's really literally harvest the stormwater, irrigate the living wall without any other care. No nutrient, no fertilizer, just irrigated by stormwater. and it come out. It's really wonderful. It's become air conditioner. I don't have air conditioning for whole summer, for 3 years, and every year I save 2,000 kilowatts of electricity, and cool off the whole building. You can see. Now that's 3 years ago. Now that's this year. You can see it's evolving. It's evolving. It's nature. If a biophilic city appears, biophilic houses. Now become an education center, a learning center. People come here to visit, to learn how you can create your own living room, green room. And also that's a small change, small transformation for your own building, but really fundamental change to the landscape, fundamental change to the environment. If every family in China don't have air conditioning, don't have to turn on air conditioning, we can save 10 three-gorge dams. 10 three-gorge dams. Virtually can you wipe out any dams in China. The electricity produced, 30% of the electricity is wasted in this air conditioning. So that's the conclusion. The conclusion is that we have two fundamental different types of theory in landscape architecture. One is codifying what's functional, what's work. The other is based on practice. This morning we say what practice can tell us to work. Now, the Peasants model fall in two categories, both of them. Peasants model, I would say. It offers a fruitful pathway to create to the creation of deep forms with potential to achieve human desires within natural process and patterns. Now that's the key. That's the key. In this fashion, human beings and nature might be brought together again after a very long and dangerous period of entrenchment. Kind of feel irrigate, fertilizer, frame, access, grow for harvest. Now this is my skill as a peasant to work with landscape. Thank you.